Hi again, friends and strangers. Welcome back to Pam Shenanigans. Everything about him is big. His body, his height, especially his hands, and he's for the NHLs and HLs. So for the month of April, I was able to read a total of 7 books, which I'm really happy and very proud of, because for the first quarter, I think I was only able to read like 7 books, and that's for 3 months. I think I'm trying to gain momentum for the next few months starting April, and I'm happy to report that I've read 7 books. And before I get into some of my reading stats, I will just discuss the 7 books that I was able to read. Starting with The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood, and this was my first rodeo with Miss Hazelwood, and I overall liked it. And I think I'm gonna read more of her work, but my biggest priority is Love theoretically because of Jujutsu Kaisen reasons. The Love Hypothesis follows Olive Smith, a third-year PhD candidate who has to fake date Professor Adam Carlson because Olive's best friend Anne didn't want to continue dating the guy that Olive had previously dated. So this is Olive's way of proving to Anne, the best friend, that it's okay, totally okay to go date and pursue the guy because she's totally over it, especially that Anne and the guy, I forgot his name, were obviously head over heels for each other. I have made a post before, I think it was some stories or a reel, but one of the most ridiculous and funny things about this book is the abundance of ways that the author describes Adam Carlson as big, huge, humongous, strong, whatever. Like, everything about him is big. His body, his height, especially his hands, and I like that there was depth to the story that highlights Olive's hard work and brilliance. Although I think towards the end, even though it was satisfying and everything worked out for the characters, I didn't get enough closure about Olive's career and the details on how the person who assaulted her was made accountable versus just it being an off-page thing. And I can see why people are saying that this book is like a well-written fanfic, because it apparently is. Like, it's inspired by Kylo Ren and Rey from Star Wars, and I am actually not complaining. The main wish that I have for this book, though, is if there were a few chapters based on Adam's POVs. That's it. But I give this 4.5 stars. The next book I read for April is Pucking Around by Rath. It's a hockey why choose reverse harem romance book that follows Rachel Price as she becomes a new resident therapist for the NHLs and HLs.
A few inches later.
It's a hockey why choose reverse harem romance book that follows Rachel Price as she becomes a new resident therapist for the NHL's new hockey team, the Jacksonville Rays. And well, she becomes involved with not only one, but a total of 3 hockey players in this polyamorous relationship. When I tell you that this book is spicy, it's mostly spicy. I read this with Pam from This Book Belongs to Pam, as per recommendation by Vanessa from Read with Dr. B, and I also decided to listen to the audiobook for the lulz, for the memes, I don't know. I've noticed that while there are different characters, some of them can start sounding the same the more that I read. Like, towards the latter part of the book, the sentence structure and the cadence sound the same. I was able to differentiate the characters mostly because I was listening to the audiobook. Well, except for Jake and Caleb, because I think they share the same narrator. And since this book has male POVs, male narrators, can be very off-putting and awkward when they do the female voices. So you can read this book if you don't know much about hockey, so it's accessible in that sense. But I gave this book 3 stars. I'm not sure though if I'm gonna read more hockey romance, so I don't know, maybe. Moving to the next book that I read, it's Lovers at the Museum by Isabel Allende. Thanks again to Nat Gali and the publisher for the e-arc of this book. Lovers at the Museum is a short story about these two passionate souls who shared this one magical night at the museum. So Bibinya is a runaway bride who spends the night with Indar, who were both found in each other's arms the morning after by the authorities. So what follows is the authorities trying to get to the bottom of what they were doing there and how they got there, because it's a highly secured museum, and how are they not able to sound any alarms? So it was a total mystery to them. Like, they just keep saying that we got in, we just walked straight through, we just stepped in, just walked right through this museum, and we didn't trigger any alarms. So it dabbles on the dreamlike feeling of being in love and how these feelings are hard to explain to other people who cannot fully grasp the intensity and the extent of the shared feelings. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. Another e-arc that I read for the month of April is Full Speed to a Crash Landing by Beth Revis. Thanks again to Nat Gali for the e-arc of this book. Full Speed to a Crash Landing is the first in a novella trilogy, which follows Ada Lamar, who crashes her ship and tries to get help from a bigger crew who has a bigger ship, but this crew has a mission to retrieve something from another crashed ship around where Ada crashed hers. This ship, Ada has already partly looted before getting saved by the crew. So I picked this up because I saw the blurb on NetGalley and was instantly hooked by the line, "Sexy Space Heist." I was like, I definitely have to pick this up. Despite it being a novella of just 192 pages long, it had the right balance of intrigue, action, social-political discussions, as well as twists. And it is very, very well written. Like, Beth Revis knows what they're doing, especially since they've written some sci-fi novels prior to this one. So I'm looking forward to reading more from this series. And I gave this novella 4 stars. Next is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This has got to be one of my favorite romance books of all time. It's about these two authors, Eva Mercy, a best-selling romance erotica writer, and Shane Hall, a reclusive, award-winning literary author. They met as teenagers 15 years ago and has lost touch. They meet again at a literary event, which sparked another 7 days spent between these two authors, wherein they are pulled towards each other and are forced to face their past and how it plays a role in their present and their future. This book is equally evocative, funny, and complex. It's definitely unlike other romance books that you'll read, as you will have to peel the different layers in this book, from motherhood to overcoming addiction, to choosing between surviving and going after your dream, and to dissecting well-balanced characters that you'll definitely fall in love with. So I highly recommend this book. I gave this 5 stars. On the other end of the spectrum, I have Everyone Here Is Lying by Shari Lapena. If Waste My Time was a book, this is definitely it. It's definitely Everyone Here Is Lying by Shari Lapena. It follows this small town plagued by the sudden disappearance of a 9-year-old girl. So caught in the middle are cheating parents of 2 different families, forcing the town and the investigators to get a closer look at these families and the people around them. Honestly, it was going great at the first 60%. I'm gonna be honest. I was compelled, I was hooked, I was burning through the pages because I need to know who really took this fucking kid. Only to be disappointed by the plot twist being served around the 60% mark. At first, when I read that, I was like, of course, I was fucking shocked. Like, how else is this author gonna pull off the rest of the book? Especially because it's a simple plot twist. It's a simple plot because you just need to find out who took this girl. But I was disappointed until the very end. I am definitely not recommending this book. The last book that I read for the month of April is My Summer of You, the second volume by Nagisa Furuya. So the second volume of My Summer of You series continues to follow the couple Chiharu and Wataru, both of whom share a passion for films and they bonded over it. In volume 1, Chiharu confesses his love for Wataru, and that volume showed how they started as a couple, how Wataru Wataru started accepting his feelings towards Chiharu, because like this is his first foray into like a relationship with the same gender. So there were also a lot of internal struggles and internalized homophobia on Wataru's side during the first volume, but now in volume 2 they are living in the same city and they are juggling their part-time jobs and schoolwork while also navigating their new life as a gay couple. It's a very refreshing series to read if you're really into wholesome BL, as in like boys love, that explores one's sexuality and coming to terms with falling in love with your best friend. So for my quick rundown of my monthly stats for the month of April, I was able to read 7 books. That totals to 2,298 pages read and a total of 34 hours listened. In terms of average rating, it's 3.7 stars because I was able to give like 1 5-star, 1 4.5, 2 4 stars, 1 3.5, 1 3-star, and 1 2-star. In terms of book lengths, the shortest book that I've read is Lovers at the Museum with 25 pages. The shortest book read in terms of hours, it's Everyone Here is Lying with 9 hours. The longest book read is Pucking Around with 756 pages. Yes. The Hockey Romance was 756 pages long, and it's also the longest book read in terms of audiobook hours with 25 fucking hours. In terms of genre, I've mostly read romance, sci-fi, and thrillers. In terms of formatting though, I was able to read majority of them were full-length novels followed by novellas and a manga, which 5 of them are ebooks, and 2 of them were a mix of ebook and audiobook. And in terms of acquisition, 3 of them I was able to borrow from Libby, 2 were from NetGalley, and 2 were from other sources. In terms of audience, 6 of them were adult and only 1 was young adult. And in terms of author and publication, 5 of them were new to me authors, and 2 I was able to read before. And that's it. That's my April reading month. And again, I am very happy that I was able to read 7 books. Although some of them were novellas, 1 was manga. Regardless, it's still considered reading anyway, and it's still counted. And not that I should care, or any of you should care. Anyway, I hope your reading month was just as good as mine. And if not, that's also okay. Do share any of your favorite reads this April, or if you were able to read any of the books that I've read for this month. And as always, I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye.